Right, I'm gonna do a general experience report on aphrodisiacs, and I'll do a separate experience report on two of those aphrodisiacs as well at some point. So, yeah, a few of the major aphrodisiacs I'll talk about would be Viagra, which is sildenafil citrate, Cialis, which I think is vardenafil citrate, and PT141 bromelainotide. Now, the first one I'll talk about is Viagra because it's probably the most well known. So, yeah, I found Viagra to be quite an effective, fairly rapid aphrodisiac. Can't speak for women, obviously, but then again, they don't have erections, so, well, never mind. They don't have the same type of. So, yeah, I've taken Viagra several times and have found it very helpful for when I have stim dick, when I've taken too much cocaine, or say if I've just been up on any chemical or up for 3 days in general and not eating much. It's an okay way of, you know, cheating that kind of sexual appetite. What I will say is, a lot of people say that if you have no sexual desire, you still won't get an erection whilst you're under the influence of Viagra. I don't think I'm believing that statement. I mean, it'd be quite easy, and it has been quite easy to just go away, touch yourself very slightly, and have an erection. It takes quite a while for you to get back down after you're erect whilst you're on Viagra. I found that it took about half an hour on average to work, and the peak of its effects were within the hour to 3 hour range. Seemed to die after about maybe 5 6 hours. The main benefit of obviously is giving you rock hard erections, and I mean like really, really rock hard. They were helpful to me when I was on stimulants and yeah, just unable to function otherwise, or when I haven't had much sleep. However, I have heard that they're quite dangerous and can be quite bad for your heart, so yeah, I'd be careful there. One thing I did notice about Viagra, not all the time, not even most of the time, probably 30% of the time, is that I'd feel like I had weird tinges in my back. Like, I felt as though all this blood was going to one area and sort of being drawn from other areas. I guess maybe that's how it works. But I felt, yeah, really strange in the back, sometimes strange pain in the neck. And often I found that whilst my erections were really strong and long lasting, they weren't as fulfilling because it just, I don't know, it takes away a lot of the sensation I found. I found that that was great for the women because obviously I'm fucking rock hard for a long time. Yeah, and also because I don't come, I'm just there for fucking an hour or so going fucking mad on this person. So, you know, they're pretty happy with it. But it seems to limit a lot of sensation, and I feel like when you have your release at the end of taking Viagra, it's still really satisfying, but it's not like it's not the same sensation. It's not that it's more or less satisfying as such, it's just not the same sensation from my experience. I feel like when it's without, it's a lot more inwards and at the back. It's a lot more, I don't know, like tingly, and I feel like you get more of a release personally in on a psychological level. I found with Viagra it was a lot more of a robust feeling. Like I felt really, really incredibly manly in contrast to without Viagra when I ejaculated, and not because of obviously the rock hard erections, but just the way it makes you feel just makes you feel fucking strong when you do that. But there's a little less sensation with that and a little less tingliness and more of a sort of weird earthy feeling. Like I felt it through, I don't know, like my biceps and triceps and my neck rather than through my groin and my stomach and through my spine. I don't know. It's a strange one to explain. So the next one would be vardenafil. I found vardenafil to be a lot better than Viagra in terms of the amount of time. Like, it lasted about 12 hours for me. Took again about half an hour to kick in. Maybe a bit longer though to properly kick in. Maybe about 2 hours before it starts to properly kick in. And you've got about a 4 hour peak, so it's pretty good. But I found that vardenafil gave me a lot more of the weird sort of pains in my back. Probably half the time I've taken vardenafil, which has probably only been about 8 or 9 times in my life. I found that I got the weird tingly pains, and that I got the weirdness sort of in my neck. I felt a little bit dizzy and lightheaded on vardenafil as well, particularly about 8 hours into vardenafil. I felt a bit lightheaded and strange from it. It's a very weird one. I found that it was a bit more nice in a tactile sense than Viagra, but I found that it was a little less effective in a sense of the speed of erection, I guess, but not the strength. Once you're up. The same with Viagra. So vardenafil was better because it worked for longer, and I had a little bit more sensation than I did with Viagra or sildenafil. But it was worse as on another level because it just didn't feel physically as good for the rest of your body. Personally, I'd rather take Viagra over Cialis, just because it didn't make me feel as bad physically as Cialis did. And yeah, as I say, 50% of the time to 30% of the time. The fact that it lasts so long as well, it just can't be as good for you. Viagra's a lot shorter acting. So yeah, definitely prefer Viagra to Cialis overall. And then PT141 bremelanotide. So PT141 is some weird research peptide. It's very hard to find on the internet, and it's very hard to find a good supplier, essentially. I probably couldn't find one now if I started looking again. I imagine my old suppliers are probably dead under the water. But basically, it's purported to be an aphrodisiac for both males and females. I can't speak for females as I haven't shared it with them. Probably should have done. But yeah, allegedly it works by just pumping your brain with sexual hormones rather than increasing blood flow or putting you in a slightly better mood, so making you therefore more susceptible to feeling horny. Apparently it just directly stimulates your sex hormones. Not sure how true that is. But from my experience of snorting about 2 milligrams of it, about an hour or two later, I was immensely horny compared to normal. And I definitely felt like, yeah, it definitely helped me to get erections. I felt like any awkwardness or anxiety was just destroyed by the level of horniness. The only thing I would say about it that's negative, it sounds great when you hear it, but it's not as practical as you'd like it to be, is that for me it lasted about a day and a half. I don't know if this is typical of PT141, but I've taken it about 6 or 7 times now, and every time it's lasted for about a day and a half, which is great for the first, 10 to 20 hours when you're with someone. That's fucking amazing. They unbelievably complimented by how horny and on it you are, and fuck, it's a good time. It definitely works, and works well from my experience. Made me yeah, way horny than I'd normally be without it. The only thing is, that's great and all when you're with your partner or with someone, but then when you're in the streets and you're just so immensely horny that you can't look at people, even like people who you would normally find repulsive without just being extremely turned on. I found I couldn't, say, look at inanimate objects without being slightly turned on, or relating them to phallic shapes or shapes that I could penetrate. So essentially it was pretty strange. As well, like even just textures of stuff made me horny. I'm not usually one to find inanimate objects sexually appealing. Sorry if I've offended anyone who is, but it's an odd experience to suddenly find basically everything sexually appealing, and as I say, it's pretty bad when you're trying to go out and buy stuff and you're becoming extremely distracted by your own perversions. Like, you can't walk past a cup of coffee without the smell of it reminding you of a time you had sex, or like the smell being so good that you're very, very slightly turned on. It's a hard one to describe, but it's definitely effective. It just, for me, lasts a very long time. So yeah, it's just a bit awkward the next day. Well, not awkward, just inappropriate, I guess is a better word. I was too horny to feel awkward. So yeah, I've covered the three things I was mainly wishing to talk about. So I'll go on to a few other things that I've used as aphrodisiacs. So I've used Damiana. I found that Damiana made me slightly sedated. Not really sedated. Didn't really make me hornier, but it also made me feel more stimulated as well. So it both gave me a bit more relaxation and a little bit more energy for when I was in the act or planning to seduce, or whatever. Another thing I tried was maca, which I found to be fairly effective in terms of it gave me a fair bit of like natural feeling energy, and it also made me feel just a lot more masculine when I was doing it for some reason. I'm not sure why, it just made me feel just a bit more warrior spirit. And then one more thing that I found, oh shit, before I say that, the Damiana seemed to work well for a few women that I knew who'd taken it and who'd taken it with me. So Damiana might be one for the ladies. But anyways, I'll go on to the next one. So Terrestris tribulus, I think it's called. Now I found that this stuff was very slightly aphrodisiac in itself. It did make me feel just a little bit hornier. It definitely made me feel manlier, and it definitely gave me more energy. I think for males, the Terrestris tribulus is probably a really good option as a natural aphrodisiac. Macapoema is a semi-good option for males, I think, and yeah, I'd say Terrestris tribulus is a very good option if you want the energy, if you want to feel raw and more brutal and more primal when you're doing it in a natural way. Fuck, that stuff's good. I found that in combination with Damiana was fucking mind-blowingly good. Led to me messing around for about 5 hours before even finishing in a pretty fucking passionate way. So yeah, Terrestris tribulus is definitely effective for men. It didn't seem that effective for women I gave it to. A couple of women really did buzz to it, but for the most it didn't seem to be that effective for women that I'd given it to. So yeah, I can't really recommend that for women, or not recommend that for women. But yeah, basically I'd say Terrestris tribulus is quite good. Stuff like 5-HTP and melatonin just I think would be helpful, but I don't have... Well, I do have practical experience from taking it the night before, but I've never really measured it against times when I haven't. I think 5-HTP particularly could be useful because obviously it ups your serotonin, and that's supposedly the happy chemical, so that's always a good thing. Anyways, that was a mild experience report on aphrodisiacs. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening.